So I'm Kate Lesniak, and I am the publisher at Bitch Media, and we are the feminist response to pop culture. I'm glad to be here to talk about, unfriending Facebook, the ultimate unfriending. I know a lot of us have unfriended some frenemies, but we all, as publishers, as printmakers, as all of these, as media makers, need to really consider our relationship to Facebook as toxic and unhelpful, and then use Facebook like it's using us. So, without further ado, I'm just going to get started and have a conversation with all of you about what we can do to use Facebook and then work beyond it. So did you just say bitch? I did. Our organization is called Bitch Media. And, that's can be a little shocking to people. So I just want to get it out there. We're the feminist response to pop culture. There are a couple of things about our mission that I think are really important. And that's not just that we're about feminism and pop culture, but that we provide and encourage an engaged feminist response to pop culture. And I think encouraging and engaging are two really important words. We're trying not to have just a one-way conversation. We're trying to have a two-way conversation. We see this as a community rather than just a publisher with an audience. Bitch was founded in San Francisco as a little tiny print zine, black and white zine, in 1996. I cannot believe how long ago that was. I started working for Bitch about 6 years ago, so I've not been there the whole time. And then we moved up to Portland, Oregon about 10 years ago because we couldn't afford healthcare in the Bay Area. We have anybody here from the United States? Okay, it's extremely expensive, obviously, but Portland is now becoming even more expensive. So we are now above a little tiny restaurant called Bernie's in Portland, Oregon, in our extremely glamorous second floor office. Please come visit if you ever are coming down to Portland, Oregon. We offer weekly podcasts, a quarterly magazine, our print magazine. I clap it up for print. I think it's going to be a really important resource for us moving forward as publishers. Daily online analysis at bitchmedia.org, and an on-campus speaking engagements program. We offer workshops and talks that speak to all different types of issues that we're facing, both as feminists, as publishers, as media consumers. Our revenge issue, is actually, we just completely redesigned our magazine this past month. Actually, of course, it wasn't in a month, over the last year. But the revenge issue is out right now. It's on newsstands and available at bitchmedia.org. But the really exciting thing is that we invested in a print media piece, obviously a magazine, in the last year. And everybody else is pivoting to video or pivoting to digital. We redesigned a magazine. It's now 88 pages in full color, and we're really excited about that. So how did Bitch get here? This slide you're not meant to read, but I think it looks cool. That's why I put it up there. But I'll kind of read a couple of really important points to you. We started in 1996, like I said, and there's the station wagon on the bottom where we distributed our little print zine. And we kind of came around a couple of bends. We got in trouble for our advertisements on the back of our magazine, et cetera, et cetera. But there are two really critical points that I think are the reason why we're here today. And the first one is that we called our magazine Bitch. Now that you've heard it, if you had not heard about us before, you'll probably never forget that we exist. Because who else names their magazine Bitch? We did. So I think that brand identity was really important. There's no getting around it. And then the second thing that we did was back in 2007, 2008, when we launched a membership program. And I want to get a feel for the room. Does anybody here have a membership program at their own organization or heard about funding through membership for media organizations? Just raise a hand. Awesome. So a couple of people. So actually 10 years ago now, we started a membership program that we felt like was going to sustain the future of the organization. And had we not done that 10 years ago and been trying to start one now, I think we would still be able to do it. And it's, things are coming back up now. But because we did it 10 years ago, we're starting to really thrive and flourish. And so, you round the bend, 2017, et cetera, et cetera. Here's where we are today. I'm speaking with you, and a lot of that has to do with, obviously, our membership program and the fact that we're called Bitch. And I just think it's important to speak to those two things and talk about name brand identity. So how do you fund something called Bitch? Not from, let's say, huge companies. There are a lot of companies that don't want to take a risk and put their name behind Bitch. You fund it independently. You have to look to your community, from other people and organizations who strongly identify with our work. We're the feminist response to pop culture, so we know that feminists and people who are obsessed with pop culture, a real niche audience, are going to be excited about what we do. And we have to have an exchange relationship, not just in terms of media, but also in terms of finances if we're going to thrive. Because again, we're not going to get money from all of the big advertisers that you're going to see. They're either going to shy away from us or our audience isn't big enough for them to make money on clicks. One really important thing, and we're going to talk about this a ton today, is by listening to what our community is asking for. I often see there's a lot of fundraising, digital fundraising now, where you see organizations asking for money, but you don't hear them asking for advice. And I think I used to be a fundraiser in my former life. I'm just kidding. I've only lived once. But I used to be a fundraiser, and the old saying goes, if you want money, ask for advice. And if you want advice, ask for money. And so I think we all have to remind ourselves, like, let's have that conversation. Let's ask our audiences, let's ask our communities what they need. This is a two-way street. And then the last thing, I'm just going to take another dig at Facebook because I might as well. Certainly not from Facebook. It's not a great revenue stream. I think everybody here probably knows that. But let's move on. So Facebook doesn't care about you. I made this headline in October when Facebook kind of didn't care, but now Facebook really doesn't care. And so this is a quote I just like to highlight. If you're a publisher who's built up a large audience based on your Facebook page, you're no longer assured a place in the main newsfeed, which is by far the social network's most prominent real estate. Is anybody here feeling like Facebook does not care about publishers and feeling even worse after the last month? Okay. Yeah, I'm feeling bad too, but I'm also feeling energized because I think this offers us a huge opportunity to make different types of media and reach people in ways that are more meaningful than Facebook. This is from a piece that was published back in October. Okay, I'm just gonna keep digging in. Facebook really doesn't, and I think we really have to get this through our heads because you see so many people saying, okay, Facebook, it's messing with us, but I think it has so much reach and access, we really have to still build our strategy on it. And so, A plus B, but what is C? So let's just review this next quote. Facebook told publishers that, and this is from January 11th, so right before they launched right before they basically put distribution to zero for publishers. Facebook told publishers that content from reputable publishers will also be surfaced. It didn't specify how it would define reputable publisher or how the traffic would be impacted. And I think this highlights really the big problem, right? Which is that Facebook is full of secrets that you are never going to know, and therefore we are always going to be on the reactive end of the spectrum with Facebook. So what do we know about Facebook that we can use, and how can we build networks somewhere else from it? That's the question I think we're going to answer here, or try to answer. It's an ongoing question. So at Bitch Media, we have 5 significant revenue streams. And none of them are social media, but I want to speak a little bit about each one of them because they're all critical to our success. So there's Bitch on Campus, which is speaking engagements and workshops. This could technically be Bitch on Campus, right? Where you say, hey, I want to speak about this. If you want to bring us, please know that we would like to be compensated for our work, et cetera. It brings in, let's say, 4% of our budget every year. It's really a small amount. We're not relying on it. We just know that it's something we care about as a feminist community. Sponsorship. So we have advertisers, but they're sponsors. Does anybody here have sponsorship rather than advertisers? Okay, so it's an exchange relationship for value. Like, we have to agree with where the company is going and what their values are in order to say, yes, you can reach our audience. We think that's really important. We want to make sure that there's symmetry between the ad that you're seeing on the page or in print and the message that we're sending as an editorial team. Sponsorship brings in about 6% of our revenue, right? So we're about 10% now. This is a really small line item, but it still helps us to diversify our revenue streams. Subscriptions. So a subscription is just your, and there's a difference between this, and I know everybody here knows what a subscription is, so I'm not trying to explain it to you, but I'm going to just explain the difference for Bitch. So a subscription is just for us, it's that term-based subscription, right? You pay for 4 issues at once, it's $30, we deliver them over a period of time. For us, that creates a situation that's a little bit tricky of deferred revenue because we don't have a huge reserve. And so that's not a great relationship for us because you're paying for something and then we owe it to you over time. And that brings in about, I love ballparking percentages, it's like so irresponsible. That brings in about, I would say 15% of our revenue, so we're at 25% now, right? One-time donations, that's where folks, we literally just say, hey, we need to raise money because we're doing X, Y, and Z. Would you consider making a donation to us? It's tax deductible in the United States. And folks say yes. And that's another 5% of our revenue. We're at 30% now, which leaves 70% of our budget to one revenue stream, which is super, super, super powerful. Recurring membership. At Bitch, That means that you sign up for a monthly donation starting at $5 or more, and in exchange, we give you a subscription to our magazine and all kinds of other stuff. So access to different types of media that we have at the organization, physical stuff like a mug, which people say is not important, but honestly is super important if you ask me, from all of our social media. And that program is called the Beehive, and it brings in about 70% of our annual revenue, and it's an enormous amount of revenue. Now, the average gift of a monthly member is $10 a month. And so we have a huge number of members giving a small gift, which means if one person drops out, that's okay, someone else will join in, right? And so it creates this collective funding model for our organization that also reflects our feminist values, or frankly, just responsible, sustainable values as an organization. So the Beehive, which is, again, that membership program I just talked about that brings in 70% of our revenue, centers one thing, and that's our community. And we see membership as something that obviously is a two-way street. And people come to Bitch Media and they tell us, hey, I'm looking for feminist response pop culture, I'm looking for analysis, I'm looking for diverse perspectives. But they also tell us something else that's super important to us to make decisions based on. When readers first arrive at Bitch, we ask them what they were looking for. And we do that by sending them a welcome email. Does anybody here have a welcome series set up? Like when somebody signs up for your email list, you just send them an automatic email. It's like, hey, welcome. Okay, just me. Okay, a couple of people. That's great. Everyone should set that up. It takes, might take you an hour, might take 2 hours if you're using MailChimp or Emma or any other program. Send an automatic email, even if it just says hi. It helps you establish a relationship with your readers and set the tone for what people can expect. You get to control the narrative there. So anyway, we send them the welcome email, and that's how we find out this information. And to our surprise, 84% of readers told us they were looking for something that was unexpected to us. A feminist community. So we're a media outlet, and we provide critique and witty analysis and diverse feminist perspectives. And people are coming to us, 84% of people are coming to us to find a community. And when we saw that, we knew we had to pivot. We knew we had to create something that felt more robust and felt like more of a value exchange with our readers, which we before were calling our audience, and now we call our community. This is something that we're listening to our community about, and we're making decisions based on. So for the last 2 years, and 2.15 years at this point, we've centered the desire for community and sustainability in all of our financial decisions. We feel like we're really accountable to this group of people. We wouldn't be here unless they invested in what we're doing. So we might as well center what they need in how we make our choices. And I just threw in that word sustainability in there. Like, did you notice that I haven't said that yet? And then all of a sudden I said it. It's because I'm looking at our finances all the time, and sustainability is really important. It's so tiring to fundraise and be a marketer. Like, are there any marketers and fundraisers in the room? It's tiring. So how can we make sustainable models that make people feel good and not like they're worn out all the time? So you're not constantly hiring more fundraisers to raise more money for those fundraisers, right? So here's what happened. Oh, I'm gonna walk down here. Because I want to show people. So these are our revenue streams from 2011 to 2018. And you can see these are all flatline. Does anybody have any guesses what these flatline revenue streams are? Yeah, subscriptions, newsstand, sponsorship, right? And it's great. It's great that we see these flatline and not decreasing. In some cases, they are decreasing. This is subscriptions, the red and the B, and sponsorship and newsstand, Bitch on Campus, individual donations. But all of these require a huge amount of resources in order to maintain. And this blue line, can anybody guess what it is? Yes, it's the Beehive. It's our membership program. And this type of line is not something you see in independent media on a revenue map. Am I right? You do not see it. And here in, I have to go to the next slide. Here's a picture of me playing hockey in college, because what's happened with this membership program's revenue is what's known as a hockey stick curve, right? It's a hockey stick, and it goes straight up. And I'm sorry, I know the United States won against the Canadians in the Olympics, and I feel bad, but I do feel bad. I genuinely feel bad. It's been 20 years. I'm happy that we did it. It was a great game, and also, what an incredible national sport. Thanks to Canada for that. So I was like, should I take this slide out? No, I'm not going to. So anyway, it's what's known as a hockey stick curve. And so I think we should pay attention to that because, again, that type of curve does not happen for independent media, for publishers. Frankly, for anybody. At this point, even Vox is making cuts to their staff, right? These huge digital outlets. So sustaining membership programs are the funding structure at the intersection of community and sustainability for media organizations. Someone pledges to give you $5 a month. You don't have to worry about whether they're going to give that to you next month. It's coming in. You can project your revenue in a way where you can say, by the end of the year, this is going to compound to $60. And I know I can count on it every month. And I can pay my bills every month, or I can save a little bit every month, right? They offer identity and mutuality to the member, and they offer financial stability to the organization. And both of these things, I think, are equally important. If you don't get the identity and mutuality right, you don't get the financial stability. So you have to invest in the identity and mutuality. But the exciting part about that is identity and mutuality comes on the editorial side. And it helps to continue your work, right? So your editors can be involved. You don't have to constantly hire more fundraisers. You can hire more editors because the work that they're doing, as long as they're in an exchange relationship with your community or your readers, feels like it's an investment in your financial future. So that's a key. So in 2 years at Bitch Media, we've more than doubled our budget without adding a single fundraiser or marketing staff. And it's stressful. It's stressful to think about, okay, well, even if we raised another $100,000, we'd have to hire 2 more people because we know that fundraisers have to always be asking for money, right? But with a sustaining membership program, you get a member and they pledge to give you money over time. And that only requires the same fundraiser who asks them to join, right? And I'm gonna come on down here because I think this arrow is really important. So this is our 2016. The red line is our budget, is our overall budget. And these blue columns are our sustaining membership program in terms of revenue. This is 2016. This is where our sustaining membership program is in 2016, and this is our budget. At the end of this year, and I hope there's wood somewhere because I'm going to knock on it, at the end of this year, our revenue, our sustaining revenue from our membership program is on pace to meet the entire budget of 2016's income, right, for all revenue streams. So at the end of this year, we think we'll raise the same amount of money from just our membership program that we raised from all revenue streams just 2 years ago. That blows my mind. And okay, please someone knock on wood for me. Thank you. There is no wood. Oh, this might be wood. Okay, so I'm a little superstitious. So it's really powerful. Sustaining income, compounding over time is really powerful. And I was watching like Susie Orman last night for a second, and I was like, wow, your financial choices are really good. But it is super powerful, whether you're saving for retirement or building a media organization. So how have we done it? Like, how has this happened for us? It's not just magic. You have to put work into it, but in a different way. So we've done 2 key things to make this work. We hired a director of community, which has anybody heard of a director of community within a media organization? Probably not. These are you more hear about director of community at direct service organizations, right? And we hired a senior engagement editor. And I know engagement editors are more often heard of now at media organizations, but this director of community does a lot of really important work as well. I want to talk about what they do. So our director of community focuses on developing systems and programs that encourage mutuality and depth with our readers, but also vulnerability and trust from our end of the bargain. And what's really important about that is Soraya, that's our director of community's name, really spends time thinking about questions that we don't know the answer to. So questions we don't know the answer to. What's going to happen with Facebook and distribution? How can we make ourselves stand out as a brand, stand out as a media organization in the sea of all of these growing digital-first media organizations? Questions we don't know the answer to. What's your favorite color for our members, right? So these fun questions interspersed with really tough questions. And what we do with those is then we pose them to our audience. We let folks know, hey, we're not sure how this is going to work. We want to let you know that we don't know everything. So we allow for vulnerability and to establish a trusting relationship. We do that when we send out our weekly reader, which if you all would like to see the weekly reader, you can sign up at bitchmedia.org. It goes out every Saturday morning. A little note from Soraya comes out every Saturday morning at 7 a.m. Pacific time that says like, hey, it's Soraya here. You know, this is a really tricky subject for us. Here's what I'm thinking about it. Like, what do you think? Or, you know, share your thoughts on Facebook, right? And then below that, has our top 9 reads of the week. So it delivers our media and also delivers a relationship. So once you have your members, one really important thing is to make space for them, right? And to celebrate them. And so this is something that we have in our magazine every year, or excuse me, every issue. And these are called our HQ pages. And so we print in every magazine about 7 pages that are just dedicated to talking about Bitch as an organization within other organizations. What it's like to be a feminist media organization. What we're thinking about as publishers and engagement folks and business side. How our writing fellows are doing, for example, like what they're thinking about behind the scenes. We essentially allow for 7 pages of behind the scenes at Bitch Media. Here's what I'm considering. Here's what we don't know about. Here's what we're excited about. Here's who we are as people. So we're establishing those relationships and identities. That's Soraya down there. That's our director of community. And you know who that is over on the top left. Someone scanned that in to our digital edition with a piece of dust on my forehead, okay? And then another thing, I know I'm trying to get it off. I'm like, okay, that's permanent. So the other thing that we do that we find to be really, really important is that on the other side, adjacent to this letter, which we write a letter to our community, and this is different than a letter from the editor. This is a letter from the director of community, is we print something that we think people will resonate with people. So in this case, we redesigned our magazine with this issue, and it says print never dies. And we want people to literally cut this out of their magazine and post it on their walls or take pictures of it on Instagram and share it, and to really feel that energy behind something we all believe in. We try to print one of these posters in every magazine and really have it resonate with people. The next thing that's really important, and that is specifically about our members, is that we create space in our magazine to recognize the power and significance of what they're doing for our organization. And we show them that we're building this community of media makers, media consumers together. This is our buzz board, and that's the best name we could possibly come up for, the Beehive stats page. This is a letter just about how, hey, thanks for being a member. Here's what we're considering, et cetera. And then all of these things are stats about the community itself. So we're showing the community that they are all part of something bigger that doesn't necessarily just have to do with us. So our average donation is $10.61. 84% of new readers are looking for a feminist community, which of course you all know because I'm telling you, but our readers don't know unless they read this. Our most popular level, which is $8 a month, and you can see our little mug stack. That mug stack is important, I'm telling you. That more than, oh my gosh, I can't say, more than 30% of our members actually listen to our podcasts, Propaganda and Backtalk. That's really important as well. And then, what's made the biggest impact on members this year? We asked them, what media did you care about? And they told us the Fragility series. We published a 12-part series last year that was digital first, called the Fragility series, that explored all different types of problems we're having or challenges through the lens of what fragility looks like. And so this reflects our community back to them and shows them what you're doing is super powerful, and also let's look at each other, right? On this larger level. Okay, so that's what Soraya, our director of community, does. She really focuses on the community there. Our senior engagement editor, Dahlia Grossman-Hines, develops routines with our readers in 3 places where it's important to be routine and personal. Facebook, and I know we hate Facebook, but we can use it to our advantage, like I said. Inboxes, email is so important. It's one of the most important things you can do is build your list, which I'm sure folks here know. And then in ears. So on Backtalk, she's one of our propaganda hosts. This is her cat, Howard. Does everybody see him? He is so cute. He has an attitude, though. A catitude, if you will. And he is her co-host on something called Feminist Snack Break, which airs every Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. And it's a Facebook Live program where Dahlia talks about pop culture, feminism, media, and politics of the week, and engages with readers. It's an hour-long program, and people type in their comments, and we have about 20,000 views every week. And she literally has a conversation, not just with the camera, but with the people who are asking questions as well. And it does a couple of things. 1, it creates a routine so people keep coming back to Bitch and relying on us every week. But 2, it creates a direct relationship between Dahlia and our community. They see her face, they see her answering the questions in real time, they see that she's a human person. And also people really feel attached to her cat, Howard. He's more of a star than she is a little bit. And I don't know if you can see in the picture, but he has a pizza bed, and around the pizza bed is catnip spray. He has really been lured into this program, and he's not getting paid. It's like an unpaid internship. So anyway, it's really important. The other thing Dahlia does is she hosts our podcast, Backtalk. And we have 2 hosts, Amy Lamb and Dahlia, and they, for 45 minutes to an hour every week, or every other week, they get into a conversation on this podcast about pop culture, politics, the Oscars, whatever they are. This week's episode is about the Oscars. Frances McDormand, all of that. And it's a great show. And people leave comments on iTunes, and they write in to tell us they love it, and they tweet about it. But you know what they hadn't been able to do until like a couple weeks ago is participate themselves. And so we started a segment in Backtalk called Amy versus Dahlia. It's the most basic headline. I was like, wow, we're calling this segment Amy versus Dahlia? Okay, fine, great. And it's literally a moment where Amy and Dahlia disagree on something, and then readers get to vote on where they land, right? And so this week is who's the best pop culture mom on TV? And Dahlia thinks it's one person, and Amy thinks it's another person, and our readers can come, their listeners at this point, can come to the page and vote to break the tie. And then the following 2 weeks, the next show that comes up, they say, hey, Amy or Dahlia won. And what it does is it creates, again, a point of participation with our community so that they feel like they're invested and they can hear more about where people have landed. There's a third person in the conversation, and it's our listeners and our community. And again, like I can't even say, like public radio has known about this for years, since inception. But print publishers who have podcasts can take a cue from that and really close the loop in terms of the conversation. Also, I want to say, Amy is just on a losing streak. I think she really has not won. I vote for Amy every time because I just feel bad, but Dahlia's really, she could have been an attorney. But that's the thing. It's not enough just to develop our bitch to reader relationships, right? Or bitch to listener relationships. Our readers need to see each other too, because they need to validate to each other that bitch is something that's worth investing in. That's super key. And so, of course, what do? We created a hashtag, because what do you do in an environment where our digital media rules? We created a hashtag. And our hashtag around the Beehive, which is our sustaining membership program, I just have to keep saying that because I know Beyonce has a Beehive too. People did call us out on that. They were like, you stole this. We were like, no, she stole it from us because we've had our Beehive longer. So our hashtag is Get in the Hive. And what happens when you become a sustaining member is, yes, you get a subscription to the magazine, and yes, you get this really snazzy mug, but you also get this card that says, I'm in the Beehive because. And what we're trying to do is have value statements within our community. So we have a theory of change about the world, right? It's feminism changes pop culture changes the world. And we know that our readers and our listeners come to us because they believe in that too. And then what we want is for our readers to reflect that back from themselves to each other. And so we created this card. So when you sign up for the Beehive, you get mailed this card along with your stuff. And there's check boxes that say why you're in the Beehive, and you're supposed to check it. And I'm going to read them to you because it's fun. So I'm outsmarting the patriarchy. My feminism is not for sale because we're independent. I like my media independent. My future is feminist. And then here's one that people say this all the time, bitches get shit done. I'm like, really? That's why you're here? Great. Okay, cool. And then all of the above. And people check off these boxes, and then they use the hashtag Get in the Hive, and they put it on Instagram, or they put it on Facebook, or they tweet it at us, and everyone else can see that too. And so it offers this vehicle for conversation where you're saying, this isn't just about bitch, this is about what you're all creating together. Again, the mug is so important. We don't even ask people to take a picture of their mug. They just put it up there. They're so excited about it. That's a little box of matches. Every time we do a campaign to gain new members, we create like a little benefit. Again, public rodeos know about this forever. The last thing we did were matches that had the little phrase in super nice handwriting, burn it down. They coincided with the revenge issue. People love them. So people are like, can we just buy those? I'm like, no, but you can become a member and get them. So yeah, we created the hashtag. So once you see it happening, amplify that work. Like, don't just let it sit in your tags on Instagram and like scroll that page. Repost, retweet, share on Facebook. And, let people validate your organization why it's worthy for you. All of the above, this is a tweet over here on the, this is Eliza. I'm just trying to figure out like which side, stage right, stage left, this one. All the above, and because Bitch Media is independent, not-for-profit, and diverse, as feminism should be, Get in the Hive. We retweeted that, right? That was in October. This other one just came up, 2 days ago. Wow, great. So today's afternoon tea break brought to you by the Bitch Media Crest mug, #Tuesday, and we retweeted that, right? Did we retweet it? I don't know if we did. We're going to be retweeting that. So just let your community kind of come together and get excited about what you're doing and make something cool that people are going to want to share, that they can share beyond just reading your magazine or listening to your podcast. So engaging in conversations, asking questions, and responding to feedback isn't just fun, and it's not just at the core of our mission. It's actually a really good business practice. It makes our readers more likely to become members, and we can prove it. Like I really like to know that like this matters, or why are we investing money in it? We have to do that. We have slim margins as independent media outlets, as print magazine publishers. I think everybody probably can resonate with that. So in 2016, we won an innovation grant from something called the Institute for Nonprofit News to test whether or not a specific type of engagement leads to higher rates of conversion to membership. And before I get into what that tool is or what those conversions look like, I want to say this. The Institute for Nonprofit News is funded by huge organizations like the Knight Foundation and the Democracy Fund. So in the United States, we have enormous philanthropic organizations looking to us to create new ways to engage with our communities and build media outlets. And that's something that I think really, I was speaking with the CEO of the Tyee. Do people read the Tyee here? Yeah, I was speaking with her the other day, and she's like, we need more philanthropic investment here in Canada so we can do stuff like this. But I'm going to share this, which I'm sure translates across the border to a great tactic. When readers ask questions and engage, they're more likely to convert to membership, hands down, nearly 7 times more likely. They're 700% more likely. And so the tool that we used is something called Hearken. Has anyone here heard of Hearken? It's a tool that literally allows you to put a question box on your website that says like, hey, what did you think of the Oscars? Who was your favorite acceptance speech? And then your community just types in their question, oh, I thought Frances McDormand was the best, but I don't know what an inclusion writer is. Can you help me understand that, right? And then you receive that question, and that question goes directly to your editor's news desk. And your editors can decide whether they're going to assign that story. And what happens is the reader who asks that question is more likely to feel engaged with your audience, and, your outlet, and become a member. But the story that you publish, that story is going to be way, way, way more popular than anything else you put out that week unless you had the best clickbait you've ever seen. And so what we know is reader-informed content makes other readers more excited to read what you're publishing, and the person who asked the question is more likely to become a member. But that's not the only thing. We also tested whether or not people reading those reader-informed stories would be more likely to also become members. And the answer is yes. And the way we tested that, because we're pretty low budget, is we just said, can we tag people who come in from this story and join our email list as people who came in through a point of origin who are reading a story, a Hearken story, and know whether their email address came in through a Hearken story or just a regular story. And we segmented those lists, and people who came in through a Hearken story, so again, a piece that was informed by a reader question, are 200% more likely to become members. They're twice as likely to become members. It really makes a really good business case for why you should be using Hearken, why you should be, not Hearken specifically, but a tool that asks and engages questions, and then also publishing stories that are informed by readers. If you're a fundraiser, you're a marketer, why wouldn't you do something like this, right? Especially when we know that social media outlets are not helping us raise revenue. So the other thing about membership is that it's everywhere. It's not just at small organizations that have niche audiences like Bitch Media. It's at enormous publishers like Slate and The Nation, Talking Points Memo, the Young Turks Network, ProPublica, The Atlantic, the Media Co-op, The Guardian, The Intercept. There are so many, there are more now since the last time I made this slide. And so it's not just a tool for niche publishers. If you have a theory of change about what you're doing in this world, make sure that you're controlling that narrative, communicating with your audience, and building products that allow for an exchange relationship, putting your editors out there, and seeing how important that human touch is and that exchange is for readers and listeners. Okay, so back to my Facebook point, because why wouldn't I round this out with Facebook? So notice a couple of things about this slide. This is a sponsored post from The Atlantic, right? The Atlantic has so many followers. And you're going to notice 3 things. You're going to notice the share copy. And I don't think folks can probably read it except for people in the front row. But the share copy at the top says, tell us what you're interested in. We're listening. Okay? That's all it says. And then the ask is to become a member. And then join the masthead today, et cetera, right? So support a sustainable future for independent journalism, right? So they have all of these things in their ask. But let me tell you what I think is devastating about this. It's a sponsored post. The Atlantic had to pay to get this into the newsfeed, right? You had to spend X number of dollars. And the saddest part is the like ratio. So you all can't see this, but at the bottom there are 49 likes. Does anybody want to take a wild guess how many followers on Facebook The Atlantic has? 3 million. Okay, so 49 likes, 3 million. So Facebook is really edging out publishers. But what publishers are doing is they're getting smarter about what their asks are like. I'm listening to you. Whether or not, I don't know if the Atlantic's actually listening, to be honest. I don't work for them. But they're telling you they're listening because they know it's something that's super important to whether or not you feel engaged with their outlet, and financially and editorially. So, Facebook. It wants to be us. That's like the biggest, isn't that like the best comeback? That's like, oh, I know you hate me because you want to be me. So, so Facebook is now heavily promoting, this is from October, and unlike many things that are true of Facebook in October and still in January, this is consistent from October. Facebook is now heavily promoting its group's product, hoping that small, intentional online communities, rather than posts to the vast sea of Facebook friends, will motivate people to share more. So what is Facebook doing? It's creating these, it's trying to tell us, create these communities here, trust us. Create these communities on Facebook. We know they're really valuable to your media organization. We know they're really valuable to Facebook. This is where we think the value exchange is going to be the highest. So Facebook is trying to do the things that we just talked about, not doing on Facebook because we don't trust them. So the last thing I think that's really important are resources to help you think about this. And this, obviously, I would love to take lots of questions, and I'm available, to answer just about anything. But these are two things that are super, super helpful to me. Thinking about reframing the conversation about fundraising and funding a media organization. One is I'm going to start with Emergent Strategy. Emergent Strategy is a book by a thinker named Avery Marie Brown. And she's actually like a science fictionalist. Like she imagines new worlds about what can happen and what is possible. And Emergent Strategy actually asks us to reframe the way that we think about organizing our lives and the way we think about organizing each other by using history as a tool of the past, and also bringing those questions that people have answered for so many generations back into the questions we're answering now. It's a really powerful book, and I would recommend it to literally everyone. The second, and that's kind of like will help you kind of get out of whatever groove you're in and thinking this is advertising the only way, or X, Y, and Z video, we have to pivot to video. Don't do that. The next thing is the membership puzzle project. And the membership puzzle project is a huge, well-funded project run out of New York University. And it literally is studying all media organizations, or many, many, many media organizations that have a membership model. And it's breaking them down and allowing for resources. And they actually just published about an 80-page paper, which is, it's not 80 pages, I would say, it's printed in large font and the margins are really, really wide. So I would check it out and I would read it, because both of these things, if you're thinking about doing something like this to your organization, will absolutely inform the way that you build your membership model at your organization. And so these are two different tools. If you want to just jump right in, I would start with Membership Puzzle Project. If you have a little bit more time, I would read Emergent Strategy as well. And that's really this is what I think the future is. And I hope that you all will at least believe me a little bit and ask as many questions as you want.
My question is, why does Facebook even matter? Because when I was talking to this restaurant and he was asking me about my marketing, I said, well, of course, we have this many Twitter followers and this many on Instagram and this many on our website. And they went, nobody under 26 uses Facebook. Ask their grandparents to see what their grandchildren are doing. Nobody would market on Facebook. And I thought, oh, I'm not a grandparent, but I'm obviously old enough to be one. Maybe that's what I ought to be thinking about. So we're having a conversation about Facebook. Apparently, nobody under 26 has a Facebook page. Why does it matter?
That's a great question. I'm 32. I don't know anything about people under 26. No, I'm just kidding. I'm going to answer the question. Facebook matters because it has literally the largest network, and it's just not true that people under 26 don't use it. People under 26 do use it. And there are a couple of things about having a Facebook page. First of all, if you don't have one, people are like, why don't you have a Facebook page? And if they see that it's super out of date, they're like, oh, that organization must not be on top of it. So it's not really about whether, you don't have to put a lot of effort into it, but I think it's important to have your brand on Facebook. And also, our readership, 75% of our readers are between the ages of 24 and 35. And so younger people are on Facebook. And the second reason is people get older. You don't just stay 26 forever, And so I think it's just not necessarily I wouldn't call it a long-term plan or long-term thinking, but people age out. So yes, credibility and validation, you have to have a Facebook page. And also it's an enormous social network. Use it to your advantage. The way we use it is we have a net on the other side of our website. So we don't ever just post something to Facebook to post something to Facebook. We never used instant articles. We don't care about AMP. What we do is we use it as a net for email addresses. So one thing I would suggest is if drive your traffic to your site, collect email addresses. And we use it because it's an acquisition tool. We use it what it's best at, getting people to come to our website, and then from there we try to catch them in a net and control the conversation. So I hope that was helpful. And wow, now I'm hungry. Sure. No.
I have a question, actually.
Sure.
So obviously you have a young team at Bitch.
Yes.
I think one of the things that we struggle with is we'd love to do video, we'd love to do podcasts. How do you work on developing those different kinds of talents in your team and get them excited about working across all the different channels?
Yeah. Okay. We are relatively young, I think. So I think the most important thing for us is experimenting and not being afraid to look like you don't know what you're doing. Like, we're all trying to navigate like this digital environment in a way, like, I don't like using Facebook Live. I don't want to like be pressing a button on a screen and people are looking at my face, getting closer and closer into the camera, trying to figure out what's happening. But that's what you have to do. You just have to take that risk and be okay with experimentation. Just try it. Your audience, see if your audience is excited about it. Don't be afraid to look bad. Like, we all look bad right now when we're laying people off, you know? But there's another thing that I want to say, which is Feminist Snack Break started out, does anybody remember what happened November 8th, 2016 in the United States? Yeah, I do. And so Feminist Snack Break came out of this need. I woke up the next morning devastated. It was really difficult. And I thought, what is our responsibility as a media organization to our community, a feminist media organization? And I thought, I don't know, but I know that we have to show up. And so this is what we did, is we had never used Facebook Live before. We literally set up a phone, someone's phone, I think it was mine, I can't remember the data costs, and we balanced it on top of a dictionary in a box, and we streamed live all day. And we just read from the pages of Bitch Magazine, and just so that our community would know, hey, we're still here. This is a really hard day for all of us, we're still here. And it was terrible. You can still go back into that feed and look at the video that we created that day. It was awful. But what came out of it is Feminist Snack Break, which is a great program. So I would say just be willing to like experiment. It doesn't matter how old you are, just younger people also don't have a really good grasp on tools. We're still trying to figure some things out. Yeah.
When you're talking about recurring membership, is that something that you do directly through your site? Like, do you have it all programmed to take payment and everything recurring through that, or do you recommend using something like Patreon?
Yeah. We do have a program through our site. It's built in, our site is built on Drupal, and we use Drupal commerce tools to build a sustaining membership program. It's a custom build for us because we're doing an exchange, which is the magazine. And often when you see like Patreon, I know you can do, it's hard to manage subscriptions through Patreon. It's good for donations. But I think you should do what works for you. There's all different kinds of payment gateways. There's Stripe, which a lot of people are using now. I think it's also built into like MailChimp and Squarespace, et cetera. But ours is a custom build. We process them through our website, but there are many, many great tools out there. I think Patreon is really interesting. I'm interested to see what happens with that. Yeah, sure.
Right, that's wonderful. Thank you so
Thanks.
much, Kate. We are so lucky to have you.